Hey, listeners, and welcome back to the Review podcast. As always, it's me, Avi. And can I just say, guys, I'm so sorry that I did not drop an episode on the first day of Black History Month last week. Your girl has been under the weather because the weather here has not nonstop. It's been changing. It won't stop. One morning it's cold. It'd be cold in the morning, like 30, 40 degrees. And then the afternoon it'd be like 60. Like the sun is beaming down. And then it's windy. And then it's raining. It's just so bipolar. It's not even funny. It's no excuse to miss out on the first day of Black History. But I did show my love because I was on social media. I was most definitely liking everything because it really is our month. Because you don't know now. You know what I mean? But it really is our month. But I'm really sorry. I don't have a long, ridiculous backstory to how my week's been going or whatever happened last week. Life still goes on, and I'm just gonna kick it off with the show. I started watching this show called Genius MLK/X, and that would be Malcom X, not XXXTentacion for you uncultured thanks. And it's on Hulu. It's not originally a Hulu show. It's on National Geographic. And you know how Hulu has shows that are like on cable TV and like the next day or like hours later it's available on their platform. It's one of those shows. And can I just say one thing about Hulu? It's going to show love to other cultures, okay? It's going to have a category just for Black, Hispanic, and even Pacific Islander heritage and history in their respective months. Mind you, the category is always there, but it's more in the spotlight during whatever month it may be. Netflix trying to be relevant because they put My Wife and Kids on the platform. And then they had the audacity to notify me. I don't know if y'all got the notification for it, but I got the notification for it. And it's like, excuse me, how do you know I would watch that show? Of course I have, and I would, and I've been. But it's been on Hulu for a minute, so I'm going to need y'all to go ahead and back up. Because now y'all adding taxes to people crazy. They said tax season? Let's get them where it hurts. So next year we finna be collecting. I don't know. I like Reddit. My mom told me about it. I just think the whole thing's stupid. America is going down the toilet. The world is going down the toilet. I don't know. I'm just waiting for the housing market to crash so I can get a house. Because the moment the housing market crash, everybody and a mama finna be getting in a house because the prices for houses is pretty high. It's pretty high. And your girls, I'm trying to get a house within like the next 2 years. No time soon, but still, I would prefer if the market crashed, next year or the year after. Just, hurry up. It's gonna happen. I keep saying it to myself and to people. It's going to happen because, that's just America. It happened in '08 when I was 7 and knew nothing about the housing market. And it happened again, I want to say during one of the Bush's presidency. I don't know. I'm not political. I'm not political. Actually, before I actually really dive into the show, I do have something to get off my chest because I said it on Snapchat, but my Snapchat isn't like public for everybody. My Snapchat is like pretty much private. But I had woke up one morning. They were like how all these like CEOs for different social media platforms at Congress or Senate, whatever you want to call it, and they wanted these people to apologize for like the quote unquote pain and just the ungodly stuff that they caused to these children and their parents. And it's like, but this is what's wrong with not just the world but America. You're called all these billionaires, because that's what they are, to basically speak for their quote unquote crimes, even though none of them were ever formally charged with anything, have been, or ever will be, in a sense, to my knowledge. Okay, like I said, I'm not really a political person, but I'm gonna get into it right now. You want these people to apologize for like the cyberbullying and the sexual harassment online that these kids and whoever goes through. But it's like, what are parents doing to protect their kids? You know what I mean? I'm 22. I feel as if I'm young enough to know that I did use social media when I was a young kid, but there was like, and I guess it's not really fair to compare and contrast social media 10 years ago till now, but it's like it's the principle. It's the principle. Like, parents should do something. You have us. We're the parents now. Us 20-something-year-olds. We're the parents now. You have these 90s kids, these early 2000 kids being parents now. And then, we're the parents. But then you have these parents from back in the Stone Ages being like, why aren't you protecting my kid from this? I'm sorry. Did I do the nasty and bump uglies and have this kid? Did I push this kid on my fanny? Do I pay child support for this kid? Do I do anything for this kid? Your kid decided to sign up on a platform that is public to everybody. And with doing that, you're opening yourself up to comments, to weirdos, to just everything that's out there in the social media world. It is your job as a parent to protect your kid, to shield your kid. As a parent, you should not be blaming other adults because they're millionaires or billionaires because they got money for the problems that your kid has. It is not their fault that some weirdo, some pedo decide to, leech on to your kid. It is not their fault. They didn't say, hey, Billy, you see little Larry over there? Go bother him. You see his friend Minnie? Go do this. Like, it is not their fault. And I just found it so ridiculous that people are blaming that. I know I'm not a parent, but I know from a kid being on social media and hearing things and seeing things that, like, sometimes, one, what are you doing? Because kids don't tell their parents everything. And if they're going to tell their parents the story, I promise you a whole $100 bill, it is not going to be the whole truth. It's going to be a half truth. Some holes going to be poked. Stuff is going to be leaking out. Something's going to be missing. And yet you're mad. You're mad. Like, I just found the whole thing ridiculous. And I feel like I'm not trying to diminish anything that these kids have gone through. But it's also just drawn to a fact that there are way bigger issues in America that can be talked about. And you wanna drag these millionaires, these billionaires who don't even bat an eyelash to us about something like, because your kid went through it. BFFR. Like, you're literally a joke. And they have these pictures of your kids, and like one of the CEOs was like, I'm so sorry for all these stuff. And I'm not mainstream, so I can say whatever I want. And even if this came back to bite me, I'm gonna be like, I stand 10 toes down. Because it's like, at the end of the day, yes, they made a platform. And I feel like as time has gone on, like, at least I've seen with Instagram and like YouTube, they keep adding all these like privacy and parental things and this and that. Are you taking the time to block your kids from these stuff? Are you? Like, Blue Ivy was, shamed for the way she danced the first time on the Renaissance tour. And she saw those comments and thought, I could do better. I should do better. She saw all those nasty comments people were saying about her and turned a negative into a positive. Even Beyonce couldn't shield her kid from nasty comments on the internet that people had to say about her child. But at the end of the day, it's on that parent. She didn't say, I blame X, Y, and Z. She said, I hate that she found that. I wish there was something I could have did. She blamed herself, because at the end of the day, that's a role you take on as being a parent. Even somebody as young and naive as me and who has no kids understands that. And I feel like I wish other people would understand that. Here we are talking about all this BS that frankly is like, it's like city level. Like, I don't think it's worth going to Congress, the Senate, the House of Representatives. It's not worth it to be in Washington, D.C. How about that? Take it up with your mayor, take it up with somebody else, the state government. But the federal government, I don't think it's a huge issue. I constantly see these updates on these apps, on TikTok, and they're like constantly updating like the rights and this and that. It's only gonna get worse before it can get better. So do us all a favor and sit down, Nancy. Sit down, Kim, because I'm not saying nobody cares, but your issue is small sometimes irrelevant, damn near irrelevant, to all the thousands, if not millions, other issues going on in America that should be spoke on or speaked on in Congress, okay? That there should be laws and bills and people should be chastised for. There is a million and one things, I promise you. Go on Google, okay? And even if not, I feel like America gets this bad rep because it's like, look at y'all. Look at us. Look what's going on in this country. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? There might be a lot of people migrating to America, but at the end of the day, there are people also leaving America. And that's where I'm going to leave that. And we're going to continue on with the show. Period. Okay. So, this show, Malcolm, I keep wanting to say Malcolm X, but the show is MLK/X. This show tells the story, or should I say like the journey that MLK and Malcolm X went on during the civil rights movement, and even their history as young kids and teenagers and then eventually young adults, into like what made them them, you know? The events that took place during the civil rights movement have always, like, I was trying to think of like another word than amaze, but it just fascinated me in a way, but not kind of like, oh, popcorn. You know, it like amazed me because it's like my family had not yet moved to America. Okay, my family is Jamaican. And I'm pretty sure they didn't come to America until like the 1980s-ish, I want to say. So when I hear stories from the 70s, the 60s, the 50s even, it takes a hold on me on how much can change in so little time and the differences. Of course, to those who were seen as minorities back then, because if you haven't heard, the Latinos are taking over, y'all. And white people, Caucasians, are about to be the minority soon, okay? But to the people who were seen as minorities back then, to them, it seemed like forever for this injustice to be over with, for them to have their American rights as they were Americans. Slavery went on for amount of years. Like, we deserve our rights. We were dragged away from our country. Generations after generations suffered so much. Give us our rights. We deserve our rights. Like, that should be like a God-given right. It should be a God-given right to know not, or sense, my bad, to know not to own humans. But slavery was a thing for many, many cultures, not just African Americans in America. You could read about slavery in a lot of countries. It's not just an American thing. It's more like I would say, European thing, because like that's originally where slavery originated. But we're not gonna dive into that today, okay? Anyways, what I was trying to get at is that, like, this is the stuff that happens in the 60s and 50s, and you might think, oh my God, 2000 was 23 years ago, 24 years ago. In the 90s, people are in their 30s, but it's like that wasn't that long ago, because the 60s weren't that long ago either. That is something that happened within some member of your family's lifetime. They may not know it, but they were a part of that time period. You know what I mean? And it just makes me think, like, damn, like, what would happen to Diavion? Like, where would I be? Not to be selfish or self-centered, calm down. It's just like, I don't know what type of person I would be, let alone if I would have ever been alive if it wasn't for the civil rights movement. I have that question, that thought that lingers in the back of my head. Would my grandmother have immigrated to America if segregation was still a thing? Would she have brought her kids? Would she have wanted to have kids, like her grandkids? Like, what would have been? It's just thoughts like that. What would have been America if segregation was still a thing now in the 21st century? That's just the questions I get when I watch shows or movies like this, because it really makes you think, especially as somebody of black and brown culture. It gets your noggin running. And if it doesn't get your noggin running, then the TV show, the movie you're watching has failed you, because it hasn't made you, like, I'm not saying you need to go on some like educational knowledge journey, but sometimes you just gotta stop for a moment and think. It's kind of like in rom-coms where you're like, that's so not real, or oh my god, I wish that would happen to me. Like, everything, whether realistic or unrealistic, fiction, whatever you want to call it, sci-fi, it makes you think. And if it's not making you think, somebody did something wrong. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Before I dive even more into the show, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X have always been pitted against each other, because Malcolm X did speak out against MLK. But it's because, like, MLK, he was viewed as peaceful protests, speaking calmly, using, our words wisely in a somewhat more professional manner, I guess you could say. He was I think, what was it? MLK was a reverend, or if his father was a reverend. Like, he grew up in the church, and they also, like, show that in the show. It shows how their upbringings are also different and stuff like that. Malcolm X, he resorted to violence. He's like, oh, you don't want to give us what we deserve? You want to tell me what I rate, what I can and what I can't do? Like, I'm going to tell you what I think about what you think, They might have been raised in the same America, but they had two different outlooks on how issues should be handled, and two different childhoods that shaped them. And within the first 10 minutes of the episode, you see how different their upbringings were and what was instilled into them during this time of oppression, especially at a really young age. After, like, it was in like 1964 when, like, the whole civil rights bill and stuff like that. I didn't know that was the one and only time MLK and Malcolm X ever met each other and were together in a room, and it was long enough to get a picture and be like, deuces. So that was quite, yeah. You see, like, in the first couple of minutes, you see, like, Malcolm, his dad, like, how he, like, talked. Like, they were basically, like, in a group. Like, I don't want to say, like, a hate group, or like a it was just like, I don't know how to describe it, but they were, like, in a group in, like, a little community center you could see, and it's just like, they said something about Africans. I forgot what the freaking thing was. I should have wrote it down. Idiot me. But they did that and all this stuff. And you see Malcolm slowly, like, his father's killed. Before his father was killed, his house was set afire with him and his parents and his siblings inside, and thank God they made it to safely. Eventually, his father was killed. His mother was locked up in an institution. He resorted to a life of crime until eventually he landed in prison. And like we all know, he decided to adopt a Muslim faith and take that faith with him on his journey of life. And while also preaching for African Americans and Muslim Americans, because he was Muslim as well. MLK, on the other hand, you see, like, he's in the church, the Baptist church lifestyle, like, all this stuff. I didn't know in one part of the episode, I could spoil this because it's a documentary. Go watch it. If you don't want to watch it, just keep on listening. I want to say his grandmother passed away. I think she had, like, a heart attack or something. And he eventually tried to commit suicide. As we all know, he survived. And he didn't have, like, substantial damage or anything like that. And I found that quite surprising, because it's like, damn. Even in the whatever time period that was, 50s, 40s, like, damn, people were still, okay, like, the world has changed, but it hasn't changed. Got it. Stuff like that. You see him go to school. He goes to university. He eventually meets his future wife, Coretta, and all this stuff. And this is only in the first episode, mind you. I'm not going to divulge into the second episode, even though the first and the second episode did premiere together. But this is just to give you a tidbit to see if you want to continue on the journey. You just get to see, like, how different they are. And I think the history books don't do it justice, because when you think of, like, what you learn in a history class, they don't really talk about Malcolm X a lot, because I guess his ways were so violent and this and that. And if they are talking about Malcolm X, majority of the time, MLK is also brought up, because, who doesn't love a good compare and contrast? And there wasn't a lot to compare, I would say, but there was a lot to contrast. But at the end of the day, in a way, the common ground, the common goal was, to stop the oppression, to stop segregation, to move towards a safer place for black and brown people, for people of all faiths. That's what it was, and I found it really interesting. Also in the show, can I just say that MLK has a legendary name? It's historical. You can't say there's not one state, county, hell, even a city that don't got a street named Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Martin Luther King Jr. Street, or like MLK Jr., whatever. Like, you can't tell me, because I've seen like 5 in my lifetime and I'm only 22. And they're all in different places. And to learn that his name was changed because his father wanted to honor his father and their history and their heritage and all that stuff, it's like, and little ML, that's what they call him, little ML, he didn't really want that. He was like, my name's Michael, like, well, I don't want that. And even his mom was like, I named him after and all this stuff. And it's like, wow. And it's like, yeah, so many people know the name Martin Luther King Jr. People already know the name Martin Luther because of the German, the Lutheran religion. But it's like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That, it is what it is. While watching this show, and from what I know already, I hate that. Let me say this before I dive into my thoughts. I hate that MLK and Malcolm X are compared and contrasted so often, because they don't do that with a lot of other civil rights leaders. So I hate that, but I see the good in both of them. I see the good in MLK's peaceful protests and then his marches, and I see the good in Malcolm X and his protests and his words that he chooses to use. Like, I see it. You know what I mean? That's just me. But speaking about Malcolm X, I don't know why, but when I think of Malcolm X, I think of the movie where Denzel Washington played him. This show is not horrible in any way. I think it's one of the best shows on MLK and Malcolm X I've seen. It's the first I've ever actually watched on Malcolm X, I want to say. But it's not horrible. It's a really good show. I like it. If you could get through the first episode, I believe you could get through the whole series. New episodes drop on Thursday on National Geographic. But like I said earlier on the episode, it'll be on Hulu the next day. So new episodes will drop Thursday, February 8th. But you can catch it on Hulu on February 9th. What a good way to kick off the weekend. But anyways, the portrayal of Malcolm X's appearance threw me off because I think of Denzel. It's one of those moments where an actor or an actress embodies a character so well that you can only think of that person portraying that specific character. And maybe it's because, like, there's also, like, a lot of black and white photos, not really color. They didn't have color pictures back then. It's like, oh, okay. Like, when I think of Malcolm X, I'm like, yeah, Denzel Washington is a good portrayal. Good, I got it. The guy who portrayed him, it just caught me off guard. Like, I didn't know he looked like a little light skinned baby, a little light skinned. Maybe that's why all the girls was ready for Malcolm. But it's a really good show so far. I like it. I definitely think that during times like these, and when I say times like these, like during Black History Month, you should always embrace Black history, your culture, your family's history and culture, no matter what month it is or day of the week. But during Black History Month, that's the month where Black history gets to shine. And this year, I believe the theme for Black history is African American arts and literature. And as an artistic person myself, artistic, not autistic, yeah, I think that's a really cool thing, because I feel like, I don't know, you see a lot of like good stuff, but like there's a lot of literature and arts that you really don't get to shine. You hear like this person did this person did that. Well, like, let's talk about poets. Let's talk about playwrights. Let's talk about all these other things. So I feel like That's something I also really, really like. I also saw earlier today, I didn't know, so, but you always learn something from social media. See. But like Ruby Bridges, she's still alive. She's 69 years old. And if you don't know who Ruby Bridges is, do yourself a favor, smack yourself. And then Google Brown v. Board of Education, and you'll know more about her. But to know that she's only 69, I think my grandmother would have been 69 this November. And so it's like, wow, that's not that long ago. Because I feel like my grandmother was a very young woman and all that stuff like that. And it just shows how far America has come. But without getting too political, America still has some more ways to go. I mean, women lost their rights for abortions like back in like 2022, 2023. I personally wouldn't have an abortion. I don't judge anybody that wants to have an abortion, but my body, my choice. Is that not correct? Let's advocate for male birth control, ladies. Let's do that, since they want to make choices like that. I think that's like that's the perfect, what's the word? The perfect comeback. You want to ban our rights to get an abortion, to do with my body, that the fact that my kid might be killing my body, or like my kid might have been caused by rape or incest. You want to do that? How about y'all go on male birth control, and when y'all hormones or testosterone, whatever y'all got flowing through y'all, are just as messed up as us women, call it at a girl, and then we could sit down and have a real conversation. Okay, have a real conversation. As always, thank you guys for tuning in and listening to the Review podcast. And make sure you like and subscribe down below to keep up with the views. And feel free to show some love or hate by commenting as well. I will and I shall see you next week. Happy listening, y'all.